All right, folks, welcome to the 8th episode of the Below the Yellow Line podcast. I'm your host, Velocity. Yes, this is what I look like. Don't ask why I'm doing this, because I don't even know. All right, so the greatest weekend in motorsports is now behind us with the Monaco Grand Prix Formula One, the 103rd running of the Indianapolis 500, and the 60th running of the Coca-Cola 600. Joining us on the panel today is Justin, Joseph, Danny with Go Full Throttle, Joe from Grid Rating, and William from NASCAR Opinion on Twitter. So let's get started.
Wow, what a race weekend that was. That is a Candyland of events for any race fan to marvel about. The Indy 500 did not disappoint. Penske getting their 18th win. Monaco shows signs of Lewis Hamilton's 77th Grand Prix victory and his third at the track. And an entertaining Coca-Cola 600. There's so much to talk about. Let's start with the Monaco Grand Prix. So it came down to a battle of Mercedes versus Ferrari and the two teammates going at it. However, Lewis Hamilton started first and had to hold off a hard-charging Max Verstappen.
Yep.
Sadly, it was all for naught because, Verstappen had that 5-second penalty. In my opinion, he shouldn't have got it.
I agree. I think it was a pretty bad call by the stewards. It was the result of pit exit contact with Valtteri Bottas.
Yeah.
And it could have gone either way.
Right.
Well, it was one of those things, like I understood the penalty, even though I don't agree with it, because again, I'm biased towards I mainly only watch stock car racing. And stock car racing, I mean, you can go 2 or 3 wide down pit road. It's no problem. So it's kind of hard for you to fathom, like, he just got penalized a huge amount of time for something they really couldn't control.
Yeah, you can't. That's something that's out of your control, and for you to get penalized, that's just not fair.
And Monaco has, sorry to interrupt, Monaco has one of the most narrow pit exits of the entire season.
That being number one.
Yes. And I wanted to mention a 5-second penalty, as William said. It really sounds big, but you mentioned you're not the greatest F1 viewer in the world. Per F1 standards, 5 seconds is actually pretty slim.
Yeah.
And to be honest, it was fair of a penalty. I feel like the penalty as an entirety was just a bad call on its own.
Oh yeah, I mean, especially a track like Monaco, where even I've learned from playing one of the old F1 video games. I mean, this is my first time watching all of the Monaco GP all the way through, but I've watched the starts of it usually. I mean, it's so tight and it's so hard to get competition on track. You would think, I mean, the best place to pass is obviously on pit road, and you can't even do that because you can't go too wide for how narrow pit lane is.
Yeah, and I agree. Like, what's funny is I said this on the podcast last week. I think it was Armani who said it. The race will be won or lost on pit road because passing is so difficult on a track that narrow.
Yeah.
And you saw how hard Verstappen tried to get around Hamilton because he was faster than him. Yeah. It's easy to play defense there, and that's why some of these smaller teams were able to get some top points finishes. I mean, we're talking about guys like Carlos Sainz Jr. and McLaren finishing 6th, and 2 Toro Rossos getting points. I mean, to be fair, you could play defense all you want and get away with it, but you have to have grit.
It really comes down to offense and what you can do. Because at the end of the day, that's what's going to have you on the podium at the end of the day.
I appreciate the broadcast for trying to make, I love Formula One broadcasts. I wish they would do something similar to that in NASCAR, but we can't have that. But they said they were trying to, promote, Lewis Hamilton's tires being absolute garbage and Verstappen being so close. They try to, make it like a big deal. I appreciate that. But let's be honest. If Daniel Ricciardo can win the Monaco Grand Prix with 160 less horsepower, Lewis Hamilton with just worse tires and a better engine is going to be fine.
Well, the thing is, you got to remember, Daniel Ricciardo set the fastest track record at Monaco when it happened last year. When he scored the pole, it was basically his race to win or lose. This is the same thing this year. Lewis Hamilton had the new track record in qualifying at a 1:10.1 lap time, which is unheard of until this weekend. And I mean, it wasn't like Hamilton won by much, excluding the fact that Verstappen had the time penalty. But like you said, it's all about defense here. Where you start is where you finish.
Right. Which I do want to note to the what was I trying to think? Oh, the Hamilton on the tires. Now again, I know the different combinations have pros and cons, and I don't really know if the tires really were a huge deal during the race. But I will say this: the broadcast team did a great job, at least making you think that this can be a big deal. Because I mean, I was convinced like eventually something has got to happen. But obviously, at the end of the day, I mean, Lewis Hamilton's arguably, he's one of the greatest F1 drivers of all time. He's driving for arguably the greatest teams of all time. We know before, especially once I heard, because obviously I didn't watch much of Monaco last year, that I didn't know the whole Ricardo engine thing. So, I mean, if you can block and hold on to the lead through that, I mean, a set of tires is going to be nothing for Lewis Hamilton to really worry about.
Right.
Yeah, and that's another thing too.
What?
Go on, Jeff.
One of the things with Monaco, one of the best examples of the nature of the Monaco race is 1992, when Ayrton Senna held off Nigel Mansell, much better car with the active suspension, more horsepower, and fresher tires. Those few laps, he was slipping and sliding. He managed to hold off the Williams to get the win. Monaco is just one of those races where the starting position is so critical. If you have something like weather, like a wet race, that's when you see a lot of the mayhem. But it was overall a pretty good Monaco race, and I think one of the things too was James being like, "Lewis, this is James. We believe in you," which was sort of like, "Stop whining, just get the job done."
And the thing, I wanted to add something on this. With you saying that Ayrton Senna winning in the racing, how good he is in the rain, it takes a certain driver to be as skilled in the ring.
Yeah,
Ayrton Senna, with his experience, he drove go-karts in the rain, so that's how he gets that experience in a Formula One car, and that's how he wins all that races.
Yeah, but as for Monaco, you got to remember he won his last 5 in a row from 1989 to 1993. And tragically, if he was around, if he wasn't killed in 94 in the San Marino, he definitely would have won a 6 in a row.
Absolutely.
I also have to say, Schumacher, remember when he won his first 2 in a row?
Oh, man.
Oh, yeah.
Total elation.
Here's the thing I want to say. It's it's a little controversial. I saw a tweet. I'm not going to mention the name of the tweet. I'm not going to mention the Twitter person or whatever. But they were basically trying to shit on NASCAR and the Coke 600, saying oh, Monaco is so much more prestigious. It has all this prestige Formula One, and then when they think of the Coke 600, oh, hey, it's another race. It's just longer. And to that I say, when Lewis Hamilton and Fernando Alonso, the 2 best drivers on the grid last year, were saying that the Monaco Grand Prix was losing its prestige and that it was boring because it was hard to pass, that kind of contradicts your statement. I'm just going to say that. I mean, that's kind of something that kind of bothers me about some motorsports fans is when they basically try to shit on others, when they basically try to shit on other series with no real argument.
Or when they're trying to make illogical comparisons.
Hold on, guys. Hold on. Let me just say this. For the person who said that Monaco is more prestigious in a way, Joseph, you get ready for this. Stay off the weed. I just had to say that, man.
I will say though, like
because NASCAR has its own prestigious races too. You know, you can't just bash another sport or another
yeah, I
league.
just saw that tweet and it just bothered me because it's
Well, I
like
think kind of a weird perspective of it is, I mean, like I said, I talk about it every time I talk on here. My main background is NASCAR. That's what I've watched.
Right.
And someone who doesn't really watch any other IndyCar racing, I make it a plan to watch the Indy 500 every year because it has natural prestige. To me, it's the biggest race in the world. For Monaco, I only call it a crown jewel because I've been told that it's a crown jewel. I really don't have proof that it's a crown jewel. But, I listen to other people on social media. Now, I was kind of being a troll this weekend about Formula One because I just don't quite get the pageantry of Formula One, even though I do respect it. I've always said it's the hardest series to find success in. Now, that has a lot of different factors in it.
Right.
But with Indy, it's like so natural. With the Daytona 500, it's a natural prestige. And honestly, and I will note this, honestly, a lot of this is just the popularity in America. I mean, look at the TV ratings. In America, you had the Indy 500 was like a 3-point something. The Coke 600 was a high 2, and then the Monaco GP was a 0.7. Now, obviously, overseas, I would imagine F1 has a much higher rating
Right.
than maybe what the Coca-Cola 600 got. So, I mean, I'm sure that plays a role into it. But, I mean, I don't really know enough history about Monaco, whether it's technically a crown jewel or not.
It is a crown jewel. Some people consider Monaco to be a crown jewel along with the Indy 500 and the 24 Hours of Le Mans.
yeah,
Like the Triple Crown. One of the things that's interesting with Monaco is, of course, the history. We saw there was some banners that said 90 years of Monaco, so in 2029, that'll be the 100th run of the Monaco Grand Prix. But the other hand, I can remember when a time there was Ron Dennis with McLaren saying, we should drop the Monaco Grand Prix. It doesn't make the FIA standards for safety. The pits are notoriously crowded. They had to barge the equipment and the cars in. But I think the FIA, mainly because of the history, Monaco, the money that's there. I mean, we see a lot of celebrities. It's the one track where you see girls and someday they are going by them. I mean, there is a lot of prestige, and I feel in general, if we were to say, okay, F1's going to drop Monaco, what's their most prestigious event then? It's sort of really...
Exactly.
Australia.
I mean, first thing that comes to mind is Spa.
Can you imagine if the Daytona 500 swap place with the Coca-Cola 600? Imagine what this day would be like.
Oh, it'd be
mind blowing for me to even think about it.
Just the idea of itself being moved is like kind of forbidden to even consider.
Yeah.
But I guess it kind of makes, I mean, because in the last couple of years, it feels like Monaco's kind of the third wheel on the Memorial Day thing. Is just, for me as an outsider, it's kind of hard to imagine that this race, where there's very, very little passing, the only passing is potentially on pit lane, and then there's obviously a penalty about it. There was only really one shot to take the lead, and I mean, even on old tires, Lewis Hamilton could still drive away at times. Is, kind of speaking about what could be Formula One's crown, if they were to take off Monaco, which I don't know what that would be. Maybe you guys would know what it is. You would think it's got to be a place where you're going to see passing, you're going to see some exciting racing, because look at NASCAR. Daytona is one of the best races of the year simply because it's a pack racing track. I mean, it's manufactured, but it's exciting. The Indy 500 does have huge moments. Every single year they have big moments. I just finally got to see the finish maybe 2 hours ago because I had to leave for the 600. I didn't get to see the finish. So, I mean, I had no clue that Rossi took the lead, which we'll get more on that later, late into the race. We'll talk about that more later, I'm sure. And then Pagenaud has to battle back. I mean, those exciting moments that happen at Indy. Then you go to the 600 where, we'll talk about that later. We have a late race restart. We have spins. I mean, we actually see crashes for the first time this year.
Yeah, and that's definitely true. I feel like more people, and you got to think one more time about American viewers. This is 9 a.m.
Yeah.
We are kind of picky.
5 a.m. in Alaska.
Yeah, don't forget about that.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, dear.
One of the things that's a little interesting, the Indy 500, the Coca-Cola 600 being U.S. events, is sort of a natural, okay, it's Memorial Day weekend. Race fans will think of those two events. The casual race fan that just follows American base, Monaco isn't exactly the biggest deal. But when you look around the world, the date of Monaco is significant. It's like, okay, that's the big Monaco Grand Prix. Some of the teams sometimes, I recall Jaguar one time had that diamond encrusted in the nose, and then sure enough, it goes in the track, and now the diamond's missing. So somebody scored a really lucky diamond. But it just seems a bit out there considering we got this big holiday weekend. Monaco, I think it's great for the avid race fans like for us. It's great for the race fans outside the United States, but for American fans, like, oh, Monaco, it's a little different than what we see. But overall, it does make it, I think, where you got one great weekend of 3 big races.
Oh, yeah.
If it was to be a switch, I think it'll be a little bit lackluster for whichever event was to switch out. So I think all 3 series will be keeping this for a while, it seems. And unless there's like some really hyper jet, I don't think anybody could physic a triple of Monaco, Indy, and the Coke.
I'm pretty sure that'd be impossible.
It's impossible.
Yeah.
That's very impossible.
To Indianapolis.
Because as soon as Monaco's done, Indy starts.
Yeah.
Yeah, so unless there was like some totally futuristic, it's like, that'll never happen, but you never know.
All right, before we move on from Monaco, let me just give you all the top 10 results, the points finishes. So Lewis Hamilton got the win, obviously. Vettel, finally, this is the first race of the season where Mercedes doesn't get a 1-2. Both drivers are still on the podium still, but Vettel got P2. He split the Mercedes party. Bottas with his first Monaco podium. Then you got Max Verstappen, who after the 5-second penalty dropped to 4th. Then Pierre Gasly 5th, best result of the season for him. Then Carlos Sainz with best of the rest. Then Daniel Kvyat, Alexander Albon with the Toro Rossos scoring points. Then you got Ricardo, last year's winner, 9th, and Romain Grosjean with, I believe, his 2nd points finish of the season.
Oh, Pierre Gasly got the fastest lap time, putting him with the extra point because he finished inside the top 10.
All right.
Hamilton has a 17-point lead over Bottas, heading to the next race at Canada. Vettel third, Verstappen fourth, Leclerc fifth. Both players retire out of the race early.
But yeah, Charles Leclerc, I think really, I hate to say it, but his race really wasn't going to go well before the race even started.
Yeah.
That's unfortunate, to be honest with you.
Yeah, like I said, he started to qualify. I mean, that's a funny thing. Leclerc, number 16, from Monaco. He started 16th. He retired on lap 16.
Wow.
Dang.
Here's the thing. He retired based off of audacity. He was too audacious.
They tried to make him prove out
The irony is absolutely real. Just think about it.
I saw that in a post on Instagram, and I was like, wow. All right.
Seems,
Go.
Wow.
I was going to say, it just seems like ever since Bahrain, everything that could go wrong for Leclerc has gone wrong.
But you got to admit, some of it's off the team.
Well, most
Agreed.
of it's from the team. I mean, they jeopardized him for Vettel.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because Vettel's here. In
Yeah.
Ferrari's eyes, Leclerc's here.
Right.
Yeah.
They're not
I mean,
here.
We knew they said in the beginning of the season, before the season started, that they were going to prioritize Vettel over Leclerc. It's like, okay, Vettel's the experienced guy. Leclerc, they're probably, they going for the championship. Leclerc's
No,
going to
that screams
Yes, we know.
orders.
All right. So, yeah, like I said, they said at the beginning of the season that they were going to prioritize Vettel over Leclerc, but it's like, I didn't think it'd be this bad. This is worse than what they did to Kimi Räikkönen last year.
Worse because they're doing it to a driver who's up and coming and supposed to, his role is to be the best in the world. And I guess Ferrari is impeding on that, whether you guys want to admit it or not.
I feel like Ferrari's desperate.
Shouldn't
They
they
are-
be desperate?
I honestly feel they are pretty desperate,
They have to be.
prioritizing Vettel over Leclerc. That just seems so unfair.
All right, anyone else got anything to say before we move on?
No, pretty much we got.
One quick thing, Leclerc and when Sergio Perez was in McLaren, people thought it would be something good, and it didn't work out. And and the year he was with Force India.
Let's be honest. When Lewis Hamilton left McLaren kind of left their prestige when Lewis left the team. So,
Yeah.
I thought honestly when Alonso was announced to rejoin them a few years later that they would go up, but it only made them down lower.
All right, so before we move on to the next race, I posted a poll on World Racing Media Twitter. I always do this after every race, if I remember. Most of the time I do. I said rate the Monaco Grand Prix, number 1 being the worst, 1 through 4, 1 being the worst, 4 being amazing, basically. 29% said that the race was a 1. 35% that it was a 2, which is meh. 3 said it was a good race. Well, 24% said it was a good race, and 12% said it was a great race. I've done 2 polls on the Twitter page for F1,
Right.
and both of them have gone to 2. So that's interesting. I just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah, that is pretty interesting.
All right,
The
so
last 2 races have been the greatest.
Yeah.
well, yeah, they've been good, but like then again, you got to think about F1 standards. So it's like you got to incorporate all that, and
Well, the previous race was Spain. That hasn't been traditionally a great racetrack. Sometimes you'll see a good battle coming down the straightaway, but that's it. And then Monaco, unless you're an avid fan that enjoys the pageantry and everything of it, is just follow the leader. Last year it seemed like we had some good races with China, Bahrain.
yeah, last year was a
Bahrain,
great. Last year was actually really
Azerbaijan.
good.
Oh yeah, Azerbaijan
This
was
year it
epic.
seems like, and this year it seems like Mercedes is really the class of the field, and Ferrari could be there. They're just messing Ferrari.
Yeah. We'll go for
I feel
All
like they need to put their stuff together first. When they go to Canada, it'll be very interesting.
Oh, yeah.
Back to you, Armani.
All right, so I think we're done with Monaco. So let's move on to the 103rd running of the Indianapolis 500. Really, without question, the biggest race of the year.
Yeah.
So far, I agree.
Absolutely. I absolutely agree with you guys.
I think Daniel Pickham said once that the 24 Hours of Le Mans was bigger. But then again, do you really see drivers from any other series going to run Le Mans? Or do you see drivers from other series going to run Indianapolis?
I see
That's my
equally
argument.
both.
I see more sports car, even NASCAR, as we've seen the years, and Formula One drivers try to go to IndyCar than go to Le Mans. But that's just me. We're not talking Le Mans right now. We're talking about the Indy 500. So, let me hear your thoughts.
I gotta say that finish, I was actually be able to catch the finish at work at Lowe's. You can tell.
What makes you say
right
that?
behind me. That finish, absolutely. That was an absolute dogfight between Simon Pagenaud and Alexander Rossi.
Oh yeah, they went at it like. I feel like near the end of the race, Alexander Rossi was going to be the hardest guy to pass, and no one could seem to catch him except for one guy, and that was at the right time, Simon Pagenaud. Like you saw Rossi wind up, he was there, he was ready.
Yeah.
He's one of the most skilled passers on the grid.
And the most aggressive passers on the grid.
Oh my God, you saw that on the front stretch when he was skimmed the pit wall, and like he was not afraid to do anything it took to get an extra spot. That's the kind of driver he is.
And Armani, I don't know if you tweeted this. You had said on Twitter that Alexander Rossi is like the Dale Senior.
The Dale Senior of IndyCar changed my mind.
Perfect.
Because you saw it. You saw it. When he got that problem on pit road, he was livid.
Oh my God.
So he was going to do everything he can just to get by. He doesn't care. That's the thing why I said, because he doesn't care. Dale Senior didn't care. So right now, Rossi, it's the Dale Senior of IndyCar. Changed my mind.
Here's also something. Many people said, "Oh, that's it," when Rossi had that problem. But at the same time, the caution came out at the right moment. Thanks to Marcus Ericsson.
Because, like I said, I probably missed the last 30 laps, but obviously I was there for the pit road issue, and I thought that was kind of going to be the end of it. And then the caution came out, and I still wasn't sure how screwed he was going to be. And then, I mean, I was kind of tied because I picked Pagenaud to win before the day started, so I kind of wanted to be right. But at the same time, the situation that Rossi was put in, like, he couldn't help but cheer for the guy. I mean, he's done everything right. He has potentially he had the best car towards the end. His situation happens, it's out of his control, that he has nothing, even his team really can't control it because something's messing up. And then you think he's completely out of it. And then he goes out, and in open wheel racing, and maybe this is just my lack of knowledge about it, you don't really see too many opportunities where guys I'm pissed off, I'm gonna get up on the wheel and I'm gonna go for it. And that's what he was at the end. And it even makes a guy like me kind of like, maybe I could see myself, if I'm gonna ever watch IndyCar full time, is like, that's a guy I'm gonna cheer for, because he goes out there, you see the emotion. When I believe it was Serbia that took him to the inside wall, he's asking, like, what are you doing? You know, you see the emotion because he knows what's on the line. And I enjoyed watching what I could before the big caution came out.
Yeah, you saw with Rossi twice. He put his hand out. He's driving 230 miles an hour down the straight, and he's putting his hands out, giving Serbia the finger.
That is a classic Dale Senior move right there.
Yeah, that was something.
Which solidifies your statement, Armani.
This defines how he was feeling. Jeff Gluck, who was at the Indy 500, he tweeted out and this was with, I think, this was maybe like 15, 20 laps to go. Rossi said over the radio, "A bunch of hungry, angry cars behind me. Do they know I'm angrier?" Like, that's what you want to look for in a dude trying to win the Indy 500.
And that almost took him to drinking the milk for the second time in his career.
He was my pick to win. He was. And then Pagenaud got by. I just find this fun. I just find it very interesting how in like the first 100 laps or so, there's barely any passes for the lead. And then 5 laps to go, there's 6.
Yeah, but you can see all the drivers who were in teams, they all had the same plan. Make it through the first 100 laps, or you're not going to have a chance to win at all.
Yeah.
And I think it was the right thing to do.
And see, that's what I hate, is I hate that I missed the finish because of how crazy it got. But, we see this with a lot of big races. We see that at Daytona every year. And except for the very beginning of the start of Daytona, they'll kind of get crazy. And then the first 100, 150 laps of the Daytona 500, everybody's just kind of riding. Let's just kind of make it. Let's just kind of do this parade, get there, and then we all know these drivers are so talented. They can all flip the switch whenever they're ready to. I mean, they all know that, and that's what they did.
And I wanted to say Takuma Sato was really close. He finished in third and only led 3 laps, but I will have to say he was there at the right time. The only thing preventing him from winning was passing Rossi. He had to pass Rossi to pass Pagenaud. No one could pass Rossi except for Pagenaud. Every guy he passed near the end of the race, that was the last time he saw them. They could not catch him again. And
Takuma come back from being 30th and 1 lap down too.
Yeah, and that's why Joseph Newgarden finished 4th, and I didn't see him as a factor near the end of the race. I saw him just riding around there, but he never really flipped the switch. I mean, to be honest, he's a better road course driver than on oval, so this is pretty impressive for him, despite being a series champion. But I think he's improving on the ovals just a little bit and needs more effort.
Newgarden did better this year than he did last year. I will say that.
Yeah, he did.
Last year he was only 8th, I think. And this year, at least he was top 5 most of the day.
He did lead. He was
Only 3 laps, though.
But he still led.
I mean, 21 laps being led at the Indy 500 is not bad at all.
Yeah.
I'd say 10% of the race. Let's talk about the big wreck with Ray. Who was at fault, Ray Hall or Bourdais?
Ooh, that's tough.
That's definitely Bourdais' fault.
Like, the problem was, they have on the back anyway, and put Bourdais a little bit.
I'm not so sure if I can hear you, Justin, but from what I heard, I do agree. Like, Bourdais didn't give him any room in going into turn 3.
Yeah,
And
he really tried to force the issue there.
and at that point they were just loose and out of control, and it's a shame because some of the guys behind them had nowhere to go, like Rosenquist, Zach Veach, and I feel like it's just one of those unfortunate mistakes that someone could have been avoided.
I will say this. Santino Ferrucci. I know he's probably one of the most hated drivers on the grid. Like, I heard like bits and pieces here or there on why. But he's slowly starting to make a feel for me. I don't know why. But one of the main reasons is because of how he avoided that wreck. I think like Ryan Hunter-Reay, he kind of just like slowly went through the grass. Nope, Ferrucci just full throttle into the grass. And I just
yeah.
Yes, I was like, okay, I'm slowly becoming a fan of this guy. This might and he got a top 10 out of it, so
He was impressive.
So I actually am looking at a replay of the wreck now. I remember I saw it in person, but obviously I had to leave, so I didn't get to see a ton of the slow-mos. Right. From what I'm looking at, it looks like Bourdais just pretty much just chopped him going into 3. And so, I mean, obviously Ray Hall made a quick move to the inside, but they still probably had a football field or two before they got to the corner. And then I don't know if Bourdais, I don't know if someone just didn't clear him or if he just took it in his own right to just cut the nose. But it looked like he cut the nose, and Ray Hall was almost in the grass before they hit. And then that kind of obviously sent them both out of control.
Right.
So, yeah, I'm looking at it now. I'm finally getting to see a slow-mo. I mean, as much as it's still kind of a racing deal, I mean, just how fast those guys are going. I mean, if Bourdais got to take the blame for that wreck. I mean, he completely threw him to the inside.
Like, the problem was, I remember I saw before that, Bourdais, like before that, they were like side by side hitting each other. And that's how Ray Hall.
Yeah, that is true. But it's split-second decision.
Yeah.
And really, there was so much room. That's another thing. There was a lot of room for where they were at the time, and so I kind of think it was avoidable by Sebastian Bourdais and somewhat by Graham Rahal.
Well, I think that sort of brings up the question. Let's just say this had happened 50 laps earlier. Would Graham Rahal have backed off from that move from Bourdais?
Oh, yeah. I'm nodding my head on that.
Yeah, earlier in the race, I think he probably gives him that spot.
Yeah, we're getting to the point where to the closing laps, we knew Rahal had a fast car, and it just seems to be one of those racing deals. But, I mean, it's something where the Indy 500, it's, if he gets around, there's a good chance you're not going to catch Rahal. So.
Yeah, and Rahal said, moves like that is where you're going to kill someone. But at the speeds they're going, they were like 230 and 240 miles an hour down the street.
Yeah.
And Bourdais, he's known to be one of the more aggressive guys in the field.
That's for sure. But if there's anything that he hasn't done yet besides being a big name and, in IndyCar racing, Champ Car, kart back in the day, it's not winning the Indy 500. He's still yet to check that off his list, and he is well into his career by now.
Yeah, he's a 4-time champion, so it's like the fact that he's won a 500 yet, it's shocking.
Yeah.
And Bourdais, he's 48, turned 48 this year, and his hometown is the greatest track in pretty much all of Europe, Le Mans, and won 4 championships. Back in the Champ Car series from 04 to 07, and total 75 races, and 0 of them being the Indy 500.
It's like Sorry.
Well, I was gonna say is one of those things early in the race we saw Will Powers interview, and it was like, to have all the success and not get to Indy 500 is just something where I think a lot of people compare it to like Dan Marino in the Super Bowl or Tony Stewart never winning a Daytona 500. It's just something where you're great and all. Have you ever won the Daytona 500? No, not as a driver at least. So
Yeah. Yeah, it's like the situation with the Daytona 500. Like Will said before, they're going to ride around for most of the race, and then when it comes crunch time, they're going to start making more aggressive moves, doing what they got to do.
So this is a really cool thing that Jenna Fryer just actually tweeted out, which just adds even more to the difference between winning the 500, the Indy 500, and finishing second. Is so Simon Pagenaud earned $2,669,529 from winning of the overall $13 million race. That's how much he brought home. Second place, Rossi brought home $759,000. So almost a $2 million difference between first and second in that race.
Hey, I'm poor. I'll take that paycheck anyway.
I mean, listen, at this point, because obviously Team Penske totally needs more and more money. At that point, the whole organization just needs to just thank Simon Pagenaud because, that's a ridiculous amount of money coming to that organization.
Yeah, it's Penske. They'll be like, $3 million, chump change. You can buy a couple.
But they got the best drivers in the world. So.
Yeah.
So that leaves only one driver now out of Team Penske to now win a 500, Joseph Newgarden. And you know what they say? You're only guaranteed your spot at Team Penske if you win an Indy 500. You can win all the races. You can win all the championships. If you don't win the Indy 500, you're going to be on the hot seat one way, shape, or another.
Well, actually,
I heard this on the broadcast, and maybe I heard it wrong. Because I didn't realize, again, I lightly follow IndyCar. And I know Simon won the IndyCar title a couple of years ago. But people were talking about, like, him being on the hot seat, there being a replacement. Who is that supposed, Penske replacement? Who is that guy supposed to be? And could that be someone that replaces Newgarden if he, as people say, doesn't win the Indy 500?
Well, it could have been the return of Juan Pablo Montoya, even though he drives for a sports car team in IMSA for Penske. But, I wouldn't put Newgarden or Pagenaud anywhere else. Sure, one of them won an Indy 500, but I wouldn't let go of Newgarden. He's going to get an Indy 500 win someday.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like he's not up to ovals.
Yeah, they said that with Pagenaud because last year he didn't win a race. It was his first one of the season with Penske, and he only got 2 podiums. I think he finished 7th in the standings. So he had a horrible season last year. So that's why they were saying he was on the hot seat. It's like with Eric Jones this year. He's not having a good season, so they're like, oh, he's on the hot seat with Bell. Which I found funny. We'll get to that when we start talking about NASCAR, but I'm just going to mention it now. You guys can talk about it if you want. As soon as Hamlin won the 500, everyone just started going, oh, Eric Jones is on the hot seat.
And yet they were talking about how Denny Hamlin is going to be gone for Christopher Bell. And
yeah, we'll talk about that when we talk about the 600.
But what if let's jump into the 600 before.
You guys got anything you want to say before anything else about the 500?
No, not really.
All right. Let me just give you guys obviously, let me pull up the top 10 for the Indy 500. Simon Pagenaud, obviously, with his first Indy 500. Rossi second. Takuma Sato third. Joseph Newgarden fourth. Will Power fifth. He came back after that on penalty. Ed Carpenter sixth. Santino Ferrucci with a career best finish is seventh. Ryan Hunter-Reay eighth. Tony Kanaan with his first top 10 of the season ninth. And Connor Daly with the top 10 with his first drive with Andretti Autosport. I told you Connor Daly would be good in Andretti equipment.
He was impressive.
He was very
I knew
impressive.
this was going to happen.
He did not expect that to see out of him.
I did. I said it like twice on this podcast that Connor Daly would be in contention. He was top 5 for a decent chunk of the race.
He had an equal shot, but I didn't see him winning.
All right, then let me just give you guys the poll. I obviously did a poll for the Indianapolis 500, so obviously won the 4. 8% said it was a 2, 17% said it was a 3, and 75% said it was a 4. So I think we can all agree that was a great race. I mean, no doubt about it.
Yeah.
Personally, I think it was the best race of all the 3.
Oh
that
yeah,
happened.
definitely, most definitely.
I didn't get to see the 600, so I can't say. I have to wait for NASCAR to upload it tomorrow, probably. I think I got the point standings too for the IndyCar series. Do I?
Simon Pagenaud is indeed the points leader by 1 because this was double points. Joseph Newgarden is now in second.
He's 1 point behind. Rossi is third, minus 22. I'm just going to give the top 10 like I do on Twitter. Sato and Dixon are tied for 47. Sato's at a Dixon. Sato has that win. Will Power is 6 with minus 66. Ryan Hunter-Reay is 93 behind. Hinchcliffe 105. Pig at 117. And Ferrucci is 129. I'm surprised Pig and Ferrucci are in the top 10.
I mean,
Where's Dixon?
Dixon is 5th in the standings.
He's technically tied with Sato for the points behind it, minus 47.
Sato won Barber, so it's ahead.
Right now. 4 days? Okay.
All right, so in case any of you are interested, Colton Herta, the winner of Circuit of the Americas, he is 16th in the standings after 4 DNFs in a row.
That's
after his win at COTA, it's just gone downhill. He DNF'd out of Barber, Long Beach, the IndyCar Grand Prix, and the Indy 500. And Herta was a favorite to win the 500.
He had a great qualifying run too. Started in the middle of the second row.
And by the way, Colton Herta and Tony Kanaan are tied for 16.
I just want to put into perspective how much these DNFs did to Herta. After his win, Herta was second in the standings. He's now 16th.
Well, Marco Andretti's 19th.
Well, I mean, I hate to spoil the Andretti party, but he is very mediocre, and it's funny how people picked him to win the Indy 500. Yeah,
well, it's not bad. He was decent all month long.
Yeah, that is true. But I just like knowing the trend. He finished 5 laps down.
As soon as your success starts, it goes downhill from there.
But I think we can all agree that the best driver of the day was Fernando Alonso.
You mean best couch sitter of the day?
Hey, listen.
He still brought home a respectable 34th place finish.
34th ain't bad.
34th ain't bad.
You gotta start the race.
It was only 200 laps down.
You got him.
You gotta wonder if that dude even watched the race. Like, I don't even know if he sets it. I don't even know if he watched the race.
I mean, last year James Hinchcliffe was strong enough to even.
About the finish. I mean, we know that.
Driver of the day, Fernando Alonso, everybody.
Okay, the real driver of the day was definitely Rossi, though.
Yeah, definitely.
He was everywhere.
All right, let me just say one thing before we move on. You think McLaren is going to come back to IndyCar anytime this season?
Nah, I don't think so. It'll only be for the Indy 500.
Because if they're going to do a full-time entry in 2020, they gotta start getting their act together.
Well, put their feet in the water by entering some other IndyCar races.
Yeah, I think I saw a tweet somewhere would say that they should
like the Long Beach Grand Prix.
They should. I think I saw a tweet somewhere that said they should enter Texas. If you ask me, they should enter Texas. If not Texas, and at least one oval and one road course. Because if you're gonna do a full-time entry, it's like, come on, you're one
Pocono, you know.
Yeah,
well,
it's a triangle, but it's similar to Indy.
You would think that they would learn just from their Indy 500 venture that lack of preparation is enough to embarrass you. So lack of preparation going into an IndyCar full-time season, you would think, they would at least think to themselves, we probably should try to figure this out before we go full-time next year.
Yeah, exactly.
Because the last thing that need to happen is start next year and run into the same problem. Because then not only, it's embarrassing for McLaren, obviously. They're one of the biggest racing brands in the world, and they couldn't make the Indy 500. One of the best drivers in the world. And solely due to their own lack of preparation. Nobody else's fault but their own lack of preparation. But you always kind of give – it's kind of like, if Hendrick has had a downtime, you always kind of give him a mulligan, right? If you do this a second time, you kind of risk ruining the McLaren reputation, at least on the IndyCar side.
And speaking of mulligans, McLaren ran out of plenty of mulligans in the Formula One side of things the last 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I wanted to say, sometimes you can come prepared and be unfortunate, like James Hinchcliffe was last year. Last year only had 2 drivers going home, James Hinchcliffe and Pippa Mann, who only comes for the Indy 500. This year, it was much more competitive. The qualifying times had the slimmest margin of time between first and 33rd, which broke the record of the 103-year history of this race. To Alonso and McLaren's defense, this was not that much of a deficit, but they still were. Yeah, they got to be prepared.
It didn't help the fact that Carlin was just downright abysmal.
No, my God.
Yeah, agree. That was what I was going to mention. Their alliance was unready. McLaren, that worked out great. This time, McLaren did a lot more on their own, and it just seemed like they were just off the mark. And of course, some of us have heard about some of those things, like, the back of the car was late because the wrong shade of orange was on the car. Just little things that added up, and then their IndyCar boss is fired. I'm hoping that they start getting things together. Like, okay, we're the IndyCar program. We're going to be in Pocono. I think Texas might be a little too soon, but
Le Mans around the corner.
I agree. If they could hit the track, it could prepare them for next year and being full-time next year.
One of the issues they had is because they didn't have a steering wheel. It was the smallest issues that you could potentially have at certain points. But yes, logically, it's got to make sense. It's just like if anybody's going to start a new NASCAR team or a new team anywhere, you've got to get track time. The only way you're going to get the right notes, get the right preparation, is you have to have track time.
Yeah, that's what XCI is doing. They're running both Talladega races this year, hoping to go full-time next year. Granted, I don't agree with running 2 of the same races, but at least they're getting track time.
Yeah.
Sometimes track time is hard to afford, though.
That's true. All right, so I think we're done with Indy. Congrats on Pagenaud on the win. First Frenchman, I believe, since 1920.
Yeah.
1920.
Yes, it's
Frenchman since 1920.
Woo.
to win the Indianapolis 500.
Dang, man, it's been that long.
Yeah.
All right, so let's move on to the 60th running of the Coca-Cola 600. William, I know you were there, so tell us your experience.
Well, I was talking to you guys a little bit before we started. The first note was just how much longer the race felt. This is probably my 5th or 6th 600 in a row, and probably my 8th or 9th overall. You know, and it was one of those races where usually, I mean, every year it's kind of a long race, but, you know, with the speeds being down, typically prior to this year, I mean, they're going into the corners at 202 or something so miles an hour. The race seems to kind of come by pretty quickly. This year, I mean, they're only going into the corner about 180. And, you know, the talk for the last month has been, you know, this race is really going to get extended due to the lack of speeds. And I was kind of brushing it off. But you felt it. I mean, you're just like, this race is going on forever. But I will say, now, to me, it's harder to judge a race in the stands because I'm one of those guys, I'm old-fashioned. I don't wear a scanner. I'm going to hopefully get one day. I've never worn a scanner. I'm sitting there with my earplugs in, watching the race with no other distractions. So I don't see as much that's going on. But it seemed like it was a pretty decent race. I mean, I know for a fact I've seen way worse races at Charlotte Motor Speedway because I've been going there for 6-7 years in a row. So it seemed like a solid race. I mean, you get a late race restart, which I'm sure we're going to get into. I'm going to get into the tip of the cap to David Reagan even before we talk about it, just for what they did.
But it was a solid race. I mean, I felt like we saw some really decent racing, especially on restarts, which we've seen all year long. I wanted a little bit more of kind of like what Kansas was, but obviously Charlotte's a much narrower racetrack. You're not going to quite get that. It races a lot differently than Kansas does. But overall, I think it was a pretty good race.
I can definitely agree on that. Last year was more of a one-sided show. If we're talking about the winner leading 377 of the 400 laps that are given, and
That was by far the most dominant performance I've ever seen.
second most.
Second
Yeah.
most, yeah.
Martin
Yeah.
Truex Jr., who got his first Coke 600 with
26.
Furniture Row Racing, got 392 lap slide.
And I was been at both of those races, and I remember the Truex race where it's like, I mean, there was no competition the entire day. You're kind of questioning, like, why are we here? And then, I mean, he led all but 8 laps of the entire night.
And at least last night, you had some drama. And one thing I noticed that I want to talk about is I don't know if maybe guys were just getting lucky, but it was weird because the Xfinity race, which was an amazing race on Saturday, they were talking about the new bodies, the pieced together bodies. The word, it's not coming to my head right now, the proper words for it.
Composite.
The composite is right. Those, they could take a little bit of a hit on the wall. Well, in the Cup cars, you really can't do that because of the sheet metal.
Yeah.
But we saw a guy like Martin Truex, his car looked like it just left a short track and he won a 1.5-mile race. So I don't know what was going on last night, but it was really cool because, I mean, Hamlin, he had a couple tire issues and he got up in the wall. He was still able to keep running. Truex got up into the wall. He was able to keep running. Busch had some issues. He could keep running.
But like, Di Benedetto and Jones, they were out.
They weren't out the lucky ones.
Yeah, Jones's car was toast. It was done.
Yeah.
Which I don't know if Gibbs was trying out something new with Camber this week or what, but all the Xfinity cars had problems. Two or three, or might have actually been all of them except Kyle Busch had at least one tire failure during the night, including the Benedetto, which is the Alliance car.
Yeah, the Benedetto was done.
Yeah, at 95.
And I wanted to mention Kyle's only incident, because all the Gibbs cars had one problem, at least in the day, was when his brother crashed and skimmed just the right side piece of his car. That was it. He had to make a few pit stops to repair it, but comes back to finish third, led 79 laps.
Right, and just props to these guys for actually being able to spin out for once, which usually they were influenced by something. Because, I mean, Kyle Busch just drove through Ricky Stenhouse, which almost became the moment of the night because I don't know if everybody – I'm assuming they showed it on TV.
Here comes the memes.
Stenhouse did go back at him.
Here comes the memes, bro.
It was something.
Gentlemen,
we got him.
Also, people were mad about Truex getting in the back of Bailey Curry, a lap car, and Bailey Curry's heading.
Kind of forgot about that. You're right, Justin.
That 52 car was destroyed, and people felt bad because it was Rick Ware had that car out of the race and the 51 time car. So they only had 53 at the end. The end of the race was that 53 car. And that was not a good day for Rick Ware with one crashed car, then car that was out, and the other car that
Not trying to play the role of team manager, but Rick Ware Racing should at least start and park both of their cars, or they even add a third one.
Yeah.
No, I'm all for them at least filling the field out, but I don't know how a guy like Bailey Curry is even in the race. There's not even a sponsor on the car. And then usually that's at least the argument, right? Like he's got sponsorship money, but the car was blank. But speaking of the spin, I mean, Truex, I think I saw, they said Truex, he came off the corner and he got loose or something. But honestly, if I had to predict, Truex has complained about lap cars for forever, so the one chance he gets to just punt one out of the way, I don't think he's going to back off everything.
I get to check that off the list.
Right. I mean, it pretty much was like, because let's be honest, the line that the 52 ran, you really don't have a reason to run the leader when you're multiple laps down that close to the line because Truex had the bottom. He should have floated up high, and he didn't.
Like, it's almost like the Darlington race when Joey Case got won by Kyle Busch in the 18 at Darlington. And Case crashed off 4 and damaged his race car. It was almost like that.
Hey man, Truex just wanted to win his home track.
Yeah.
He got it done.
You think he can win at his home track in Pocono next week?
He's
Huh?
done it twice.
He's
He's
gonna
done
have
it twice. Yeah.
Like,
That would forever be my favorite NASCAR meme.
I'm literally just like, I've been shocked how Bowman's finished second 3.7. His average finish 2.5 in the last 4 races. It's not
I
bad.
think it's time for Johnson to get a win, man. As a 48 fan, I'm really starting to get impatient.
I'm gonna be
To be
completely
fair,
honest.
he's doing a little better.
I'm gonna be completely honest with our dear Jimmy Johnson fan. And as I've gotten older, I've learned to respect Jimmy so much because I used to, when you're young and when you're young, you're just pure. You say what you think. I mean, that is. You don't really look at respect and all that because you don't know what that is. So obviously, I was in a situation where, of course, I didn't like Jimmy Johnson, right? Because he wins everything.
I know.
I got a ton of respect for him now. I don't know. As much as a lot of the issue has been Hendrick, and I will probably say Hendrick has the reputation that one or two of their cars are always stronger than others because they get the better pieces. Chase is their number one guy now. And over the last couple of weeks, it's kind of been the 88's been getting a really big push. And then obviously Chad Knaus to the 24. Chad Knaus is going to get any resources he wants. So the 24 is also going to be right there. But part of me is thinking it's got to be part of Jimmy because we've seen all other Hendrick cars take a step up. Now, he still had a top 10 finish. And I think I actually saw Nick Broomberg said for the 4 Hendrick cars finished in the top 10 for the first time since 2016.
Holy, yeah.
The 48 car, it seems like of the 4, has picked up the lesser amount of speed than any of the others.
Jimmy said, I think last week, that he doesn't have 5 years. He doesn't even think he has 2 years left. So, that Jimmy Johnson, I think he even said Texas or Phoenix. He said sometime this year where it's like he just can't pass anyone like he can anymore because
he's not in his prime anymore. That's the thing.
Yeah.
People want to acknowledge it because he's Jimmy Johnson,
That's just the reality of it.
Did we say this about? I know nobody was born yet, including myself at this time. But did anyone say that about Richard Petty after before 1992? That, he's not winning anymore, and that's a problem.
That's so crazy to think about. Richard Petty, after winning his 200th race, he won 8 seasons without a win.
He was off his prime.
His last season in 1992. No top 5s, no top 10s.
Well, it's also such a different dynamic now. Back that was 20, 25 years ago. Richard Petty could have done whatever he wanted to. STP wasn't going to leave him. He was going to have a full season sponsorship. That's how it was back in the day. Nowadays, it's so competitive. It's so competitive that, if Ally Financial in 2 years says, Jimmy Johnson has pretty much locked himself into a ride for whatever he wants. He's got the same effect that Jeff Gordon had. It doesn't matter what happens. He's going to have a sponsor. But he's hit the same bump that Gordon hit, Jimmy has hit. He's older. Gordon did the same thing. They get older, and the competition picks back up, especially when Hendrick isn't the number one team. Even in Gordon's late years, Hendrick was no longer the number one organization. When Jimmy won 5 titles in a row, Hendrick Motorsports could do no wrong. They had the best cars every single week, the best engineers, the best crew chiefs. Now that's going to teams like Joe Gibbs Racing or Team Penske, and you see what the effects are.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you make a great point.
Or the Wood Brothers.
The Wood Brothers, to be fair, it's hard to define them. They're just a one-car team that shows very few signs of shining. And but for Hendrick Motorsports, you got to remember when Jimmy Johnson entered the team, Jeff Gordon was everything. Jeff was the one who brought Jimmy to the organization, and then Jimmy started outperforming Jeff, and then he wins his first 5 titles in a row. And yeah, you could say what you want about the format of the chase and how they changed over time, and there's still 5 championships in the end. At one point, when I was a kid, around 10 years ago, at the time of the chase, when it came to that time of the year, I would say, okay, Jimmy's going to win. Congratulations. When we're still in October. And This was 10 years ago when Mark Martin was in the points. Like, okay, that's great. Enjoy it now because Jimmy's going to take it all away from you. And then Talladega happened, and yeah, he never recovered.
One of the things that you mentioned, Ally is a 2-year sponsor for Jimmy Johnson. I can't help but think, Jimmy's planning, hey, next year might be the last year. Ally's last year to be committed. They could try to then either Ally sticks with a new driver or if Ally was to leave. But at least Jimmy will be, sort of out of, not going to be at that point. He's a driver without a sponsor. I think a lot of people were shocked when Lowe's was like, hey, we're going to leave the 7-time champion. Ally came in, and I think it's Jimmy's getting near, and with the way it's so competitive now, Richard Petty had that big farewell tour in 1992. We saw Harry Gant do something similar in 1994 when he retired. But now we're at a point it's like, okay, we can't just have you running multiple years without a win. We need to get that younger driver in here to get wins, to get sponsorship money.
And the thing is, unlike Richard, is Jimmy's not driving for his own team. He's driving for a powerhouse team that has, the same kind of expectations that an up-and-coming driver like Chase Elliott. I mean, more like William Byron would have. And
I said this. Speaking of which, I said this back in 2017 when Chevy announced that they were going to change the SS. This is before the Camaro or Lowe's or anything that was announced. When Chevy announced they're going to change the SS, I even said they're going to switch to the Camaro. Next thing you know, I look on my phone in science class, they're switching to the Camaro. I literally called it 5 months ago. When Lowe's in 2017 announced the 1-year sponsorship just through 2018, I said it. 2018, Lowe's is after 2018, Lowe's is gone. Next, what do you know? They're gone. So when Lowe's announced they were going to leave, I was like, yeah, I'm not surprised. They only signed a 1-year contract.
I mean, it won't be surprising at all to me if Ally steps away. It would make sense for them to step away at the same time. The thing is with Jimmy, that's always thrown him off as you can't predict when he's going to leave, is he's such in physically good shape. That's nowhere even near a problem. He's always seemed to be really mentally strong. And usually, to me, the drawing point for Carl Edwards was the reason he walked away is he wrecked the final race at Homestead when he had his best shot to win a title, besides obviously 2011. I felt like he had put everything on the table that he could possibly give, and he still could not win a championship. So he decided to leave. If Jimmy eventually reaches that point, which you don't know what it would take to reach that point because of how mentally tough he's always seemed to be, I mean, it could be time. I mean, if he runs this year without a win and then goes into next year without a win, I mean, part of you's got to think he may consider it being done, especially, people have always, chatted about what was the reason that Jeff Gordon left. And some people, I think Gordon even may have said in an interview, he felt like he had been there, he had put in his time, it's time to give someone else an opportunity, which was Chase Elliott. Does Jimmy Johnson fall in that same footsteps? Does he look at a guy, which I don't think this is going to be the right guy for the fit, even though I'm a fan of his, but does he look at a guy like Noah Gragson a year or two from now and say, assuming Noah Gragson picks up the pace in the Xfinity Series, or, a guy like Kyle Larson who wants to potentially leave Ganassi, does he say this is his chance to come and take this ride?
Yeah, right.
But I wanted to say something about Kyle Larson. Many people say he should go to Hendrick. He's the next Jeff Gordon. He's got the same characteristics as him. I think so. Kyle Larson goes to 48. I mean, not saying he's bad at Ganassi, but he could go a step higher, go from strength to strength, and that could be the rock-on choice here.
Oh my!
It's kind of like, I don't want to compare it to Casey Kane due to the outcome, but when he joined Hendrick in 2012, he went uphill.
Yeah.
I think I'll be more surprised if Jimmy Johnson gets a new contract. If he does, I'll be more surprised if that happens than if he retires. If he announced his retirement, okay, we saw that coming.
Yeah.
If Jimmy Johnson's got even a 1-year contract, I'll be shocked. I'll be like, wow.
Rick Hendrick is going to do the same thing with Jimmy as he did with Jeff. He's pretty much got a lifetime contract. Jimmy is going to determine when he's done racing, just like Jeff determined when he was done racing. I mean, even
And obviously, part of that, and you got to consider, part of that's also the marketing value. Look at Dale Jr. Dale Jr. struggled most of the end of his career. He had a really good year. I think it was in 2014.
Yeah,
But he still struggled for the most part. And they've talked about the conversations him and Rick had towards the end of his career all the time. And he decided he wanted to finish on his own terms. But he told Rick, I'm done racing. Rick would have re-signed him right then. He had the sponsors. He had everything. He's going to do the same thing with Jimmy. He's going to say, Jimmy, do you want to still race? It's either going to be a yes or no answer. And then they'll move on from there.
Like when Dale Jr. was starting in 2016, at 2017, like 2016 when he had the concussion, when they had Bowman and Gordon run, for some reason in 2017, before Dale Jr. retired, I knew Bowman was going to take. Like when Jr. announced his retiring, and nobody knew the driver, right? So a couple months before he announced the driver, I knew Bowman was going to take because.
You know what, Justin? I agree, though, because after Phoenix in 2016, Bowman's performance was just spectacular.
Yeah, that
and
was
safe for him.
I do want to say this, and this is kind of I'm not going to call it like a hot take because it's kind of obvious.
Right.
The key to Alex Bowman staying at Hendrick Motorsports is if Jimmy Johnson decides to retire, unless Bowman picks up the pace. Obviously, now Bowman's done a great job the last month. Really proud to see what he's done. But if Bowman, let's say he cools off and kind of goes back into the same up and down pattern he had been last year. Remember, everybody needs to remember this. Brad Keselowski was supposed to be the next Hendrick driver until Rick Hendrick and Mark Martin sat down and Mark Martin wanted to drive. Rick Hendrick is going to listen to Jimmy Johnson before he listens to Alex Bowman. If Alex Bowman wants to stay at Hendrick long term, he needs to hope that Jimmy calls it quits, and then the next young driver can come fill the 48 because Exalt is going to stick around with no matter who it is.
Right.
Because, I mean, they have such a great partnership. All it takes is if Jimmy says, you know what, I want to sign another 3-year deal, and if Hendrick wants somebody other than Alex Bowman, they're going to drive the 88 car.
Yeah, that's true.
But you know what? I think Alex Bowman's in the right direction at the moment.
He's doing great. I've been really proud of him. I mean, I didn't expect him to have this run. I mean, I was pulling for him to win Kansas. I think everybody was.
Yeah,
I mean, he's a quiet personality. I wish you could I wish we knew more about him. He's just that kind of guy. Even like I got to get his autograph in Atlanta in the garage. And just his vibe he gives off is he's kind of just a quiet dude. But I mean, he's done a hell of a job the last month. I mean, if he keeps his pace up, I mean, you can't even throw it in the back of your mind to get rid of him.
And remember, when we come to Pocono this weekend, the last time we came there was then his best career finish at third before the last three of the last 4
So
races.
that says a lot going into this year. Will he get that first win at Pocono?
That's all he has next in NASCAR so far.
It's possible.
Big question.
Yeah,
I could definitely see him getting a win at Pocono just because Pocono sometimes seems to be that race that kind of opens the door for a team. I mean, I remember, was it Ryan Blaney got his first win at Pocono? Then I remember when Truex was first starting to click with the 78 team. I believe it was his second year there. Pocono was where they went and won that race.
How about Denny's first 2 wins? Both came at Pocono.
Yep.
I will say one more thing about Jimmy Johnson. I think he wants to be done. I just think so. Because you said, like you see, it's like, when he starts talking about NASCAR, his NASCAR career, he says, like, I might not have as many years left. When he starts talking about, like, IndyCar, sports car racing, he's like, oh, yeah, I really want to do that again.
Oh, yeah.
He probably wants to be done.
Look at John Force and what he's doing. You know what I'm saying? The guy is 60 years old and he's still kicking ass.
And he has a family with kids getting, older and more connectable.
John Force, the Pornhub lover.
Well, I think one of the factors that may help him make his decision quicker is, I mean, don't get me wrong, I think Jimmy wants number 8 better than you could ever want it because, I mean, that would cement him as much as you could talk about formats and we can disagree about this was this was that.
Yes.
You win 8 Cup championships. At the end of the day, you win 8 Cup championships and you're the winningest championship driver in at least the Cup Series history. But he himself is starting to say things like, I don't have 5 years left. And that's what makes you think maybe he's starting to believe that he can't get it done anymore. I mean, and I don't think he will win another championship. I was shocked that when he won his 7th championship, just because it's too strong. If it was just maybe one other organization that was running really well, maybe it was just Team Penske that was running well, I'd give him a chance. But now he's got to battle all of Team Penske, all of Joe Gibbs Racing. Then you've got his own teammate, Chase Elliott. He's running great. You've got now, I mean, when Jimmy was winning those titles, you had maybe 4 or 5 other legit teams that could get the job done.
Including multiple teammates like Jeff Gordon and then
Right.
Kyle Busch.
And nowadays, you've got 10 other organizations and teams that could potentially fight for the championship.
I said this in 2016, and I still stand by it, even though I know I'm like 99% sure I'm going to be wrong. I said that Jimmy Johnson will win the title this year. Yeah, I'm not looking good this year. I know that. But then again, remember, Tony Stewart, before he won Sonoma in 2005, he was like 14th in the standings, and then he went on to win the championship. So you never know. Do I think Jimmy's going to do that? No.
Realistically, all it takes is Jimmy getting one win. And if Jimmy Johnson,
and it starts the snowball effect.
Exactly. All it takes is for him to get one win. If he can get one win, he's in the playoffs. And we all know every team prepares differently in the playoffs than they do in the regular season. So let's just say only Jimmy and Chase get a win at Hendrick. Let's say Bowman can't get it done. Well, Bowman's probably going to make the playoffs regardless. And Byron's running well enough where he can. So that makes it a little tougher. Those cars are going to be more level than they are right now. Right now, I mean, they're kind of doing their own thing. When it comes to playoff time, Jimmy Johnson can get it done in the playoffs. All it has to do is start snowballing. And all of a sudden, if a guy like Alex Bowman can get 4 top 7 finishes in a row, why can't Jimmy Johnson, a 7-time champion?
Yeah, you make a
He already has back-to-back top 10 so far.
I mean,
He's clicking out some top 5s.
If anybody can do it, it's him. I mean, that's the thing. If anybody can get it done, it's him. It just depends on how's Hendrick going to be looking in the playoffs. Because really, the excuses for Hendrick are done. We've seen him run well now. I mean, that's no longer an excuse that the Camaro's not figured out. Is it as fast as the Mustang is or the Camry?
Absolutely.
Not necessarily. I mean, they're a tick off, but that's not enough to be an excuse anymore.
Yeah.
And that's where I hit to Kyle Larson and point fingers at him. And Chip Ganassi Racing, I feel like now it's them who's asleep when it comes to the struggling Chevrolets. Kyle Larson is not being as good as Kurt Busch so far.
Well,
Kurt's outperforming him, and this is still like just more than halfway into the season, or maybe a little less than halfway in the season. And Kurt, first time with Ganassi, and many people already think Kurt's in his waning years of his career, which I do agree with. He's playing with Kyle Larson.
I'm looking at the standings. Kurt's 8th, Larson's in 16th. Kurt's in the top 10. Larson's 12 and 16th place.
I think he's only like 2 spots ahead of.
Oh my God! Eric Jones is not even in the 16th spot. He's 17th in the 20 time.
I feel like if he's gonna bump, I feel like if Eric Jones is gonna make it in, he's got to beat Johnson by Larson.
He's only 4 points ahead of Ryan Newman, and he's 4 points behind. And there's some people. Newman does not even have a DNF this season. Newman, Kyle Busch, Keselowski, Kurt Busch, Johnson, Newman, and Ty Dillon. Some of these guys don't have DNF.
Yeah, 2-time stage winner Ty Dillon. He can make it. If Ty Dillon actually makes the playoffs somehow, some way, the fact that he'll have any stage points at all, any playoff points at all, just baffles my mind.
You've been at Mexico.
Yeah.
And Kyle Larson have the most DNFs this season with 4. Just this season. You've been at Larson have the most DNFs.
Yeah, that's unfortunate for Larson.
With 4 DNFs. Bowman only has 1 DNF. And the whole season is 1. All the other races, only 1 DNF right now. We see, the top 3 are Harvick by 1. 4th place, that Harvick tied at 4th because Chase is 3rd to win. Harvick's 4th, the highest for no win, is Kevin Harvick. He's not won yet this season.
If we want to talk about some other drivers who have been on who've kind of been cooling off, Denny Hamlin. What's going on with him?
I don't know.
Ever since he won the Daytona 500,
No,
No, not even. It's ever since he won Texas. Think about it. After Texas, he was second in the standings, and there was only one race he was at, and his worst finish out of Texas was the seventh race of the season, if I'm not sixth or seventh. Seventh race of the season. He had, I believe, 5 top 5s and 6 top 10s. He had his worst finish at that time of 11th in Atlanta. And then ever since then, ever since Talladega, he's just off a rock.
He's finished 16th or worse 4 consecutive weeks. Talladega, which is Talladega, you take it with a grain of salt. I don't remember a ton from races after a week or two has passed. I don't really remember the whole Dover, Kansas situation. In Charlotte, last night, he had a decent car. Then he got – I didn't see the replay, but I know he got wrecked in the last lap, which didn't help.
Yeah, and also Hamlin blew tires 2 times before that. He blew twice. He blew a right front twice in the race. And he's now dropped to 7th in the standings.
Yeah, he was second after Texas.
But I think he's going to pick it up, though.
I think Hamlin will be fine. But his team needs to start, starting to see what the issue is.
Well, good old Michigan are 2 of his better tracks. He hasn't won there in years, but, I wouldn't count out the 11 Michigan either. Sonoma.
He was close to 20.
He only won, I think, Watkins Glen when it comes to road courses.
Yeah,
he almost won in 2016 against his former teammate, Tony Stewart, who got him with the hairpin.
Yep.
Another driver who's fallen off. I guess you could say fallen off a cliff at this point. Eric Almirola. What's going on with him?
He's down to 12. He got passed by Bowman and in the standings. And 12.
Justin, I'm still reluctant to call the 2018 season a fluke for Eric Almirola. There's still a lot in him.
Fluke.
Don't forget, this is just his second year with Stewart Haas Racing. Team 2.
He's had such a hot start to the season. The first time in racing, I think he had 6 top 10s.
Yeah.
And for these other 5 races, he's only had 1. So I don't know what's going on with him either.
That's where it's going downhill. He's literally up to 12 in the standings behind Boyer. Literally, there's one Stewart Haas on the top 10, Kevin Harvick and Boyer 11. Almirola was 12, Stewart 13. I don't know what's going on with Eric Almirola falling down 12th in the standings after his season.
I think Almirola is he doesn't need to worry, but he needs to start picking the pace back up again.
Yeah.
Hamlin, he's got nothing really to worry about. Obviously, he's locked in. He just needs to worry about actually finishing races. Eric Almirola, he needs to start thinking, okay, we need to pick up the pace.
Suarez is 13 behind Almirola points. Got 41 car.
I said this on Twitter. I forgot it was either last night or today. Stewart Haas Racing is having a 2017 Joe Gibbs Racing season.
Oh, yeah. I remember
Stewart Haas Racing hasn't won this season. Joe Gibbs Racing didn't win until New Hampshire last year with Denny Hamlin.
I remember that. It took a while for them to win.
It took Gibbs a while. It took them to well, the difference I think with Gibbs and Stewart Haas, I feel like they understand, they got the Mustang figured out.
Yeah.
They just not completely, but they got they got a handle on it.
Yeah.
With Gibbs, they didn't really have a handle. Kyle Busch was running good, but it's Hamlin, Kenseth, and Suarez, they were the back end of the top 10 at best.
Max, usually Joe Gibbs Racing, though. Kyle Busch is the lead driver of the team, kind of like how maybe a few years ago we'd be saying Jimmy Johnson is the lead driver of Hendrick now that Jeff Gordon's gone. Well, when it comes to Kyle Busch, I feel like that role will still be his. We're many years to come. Since he's joined the team in 2008, he's pretty much had that role except for just a few seasons. I think in 2010, for sure, 2010 when Denny Hamlin was just on a marathon with wins and nearly getting that championship. With, like Kyle Busch being the lead driver of the team, and that's another thing too. Significance of being that quote unquote lead driver. How big is that for NASCAR and for a driver?
Yeah.
I think it's going to be similar to 2017. Once Stewart-Haas gets a win, they're just going to keep winning. Because, I mean, after Hamlin got his first win of the season.
You can
then
just
Kyle
look at
Busch-
Harvick, you know.
Yeah. Then Kyle Busch won Pocono. Then he won Bristol. Then Hamlin won Darlington. Kyle Busch won Pocono. No, okay, sorry. Hamlin won Loudon. Then Kyle Busch won Pocono. Then Hamlin won Darlington. Then Kyle Busch won Bristol. Or I think you
Kyle won Bristol.
flipped those two.
And
Yeah. And then Kyle Busch won New Hampshire and Dover back-to-back. Then he won Martinsville. Like, they just started winning once they got that first win in. So that's what I think is going to happen with
But
Stewart
the thing
Haas.
though is like Kyle Busch in 2017 kind of reminds me of Kevin Harvick in 2019 this year. So Kyle Busch has been flirting with the top 5 in every spot there is but first place, and then come summertime like for Kyle Busch in 2017 at Pocono, that was a very big win. Like just one of those sigh of relief wins. He finally broke through, and then it looks just like his usual Kyle Busch going into the end of the year. Now, Kevin Harvick is in the same situation. He has, going into Charlie, he had 8 top 5 finishes. And there's the same kind of deal. Kevin Harvick is going to break through in one of these races. He just has to finish first. That's not that many positions away from 5th or 10th. He's been there before. Look at last year. And how old is Harvick? 43?
Yeah, 44.
And he's been in NASCAR since 2001, the Cup Series. Just 1 year more than Jimmy Johnson, equivalent to Kurt Busch.
Right.
Has a lot left in him. So this year, do not count him out.
Well, I think they're really similar to, as much as we kind of overlooked it because Mustang hasn't had too much of a drawback, which I predicted before the year started, because the nose is very similar to what the Fusion was. They weren't going to have a ton of pushback. Is when a couple years ago when the Camry made a little bit of a change, Gibbs struggled a little bit. Now, they were still really good, but they struggled a little bit. And I think it's one of those things where Team Penske probably they kind of adjusted a little bit better with the Mustang. And maybe it's Stewart-Haas is just a step back behind them to where maybe there are some intricacies with the Mustang that they haven't quite smoothed out 100%. And maybe Team Penske's done a better job of.
Yeah, I also feel like Penske is coming extra prepared. And this may be a funny analogy because this is compared to something not in NASCAR. In Australia with the Supercar Series, they're also making their debut with the Mustang. And many say it has the shape equivalent to the old Falcon. And reigning champion, just like in NASCAR with the Fusion, reigning champion. 2 of them, Scott McLaughlin, Joey Logano, coming in with momentum in the following year. And the funny thing is on one side of it, there's a driver getting 10 wins in the first 14 races, Scott McLaughlin, in a Mustang. Now, Joey Logano, of course, not the same deal, but winning once at Vegas.
And the Holden fans are crying a river once again.
You Dan. But I wanted to say, like, maybe it's just the little things that got Penske a step ahead of Stewart-Haas Racing this year.
It's like Furniture Row in 2017.
That's true.
One of the things with Penske, they have the manpower and I mean, you look at this past weekend, they swept the V8 Supercar Series. McLaughlin was sweeping it. Indianapolis, they got away. Joey Logano was one spot from having Penske win all 3 events that they entered. That would have been something never been done before. Granted, even just
600.
Indy 500, Coke 600. So they're on a really good year, Penske. And then it seems like one of the things I think some of us may want to consider too is this aero package. I feel the last few races we've seen this aero package really deliver in a half. That's probably something new for Harvick, Rodney Childers, as well as all the teams. And We got new aero package, new car body. It just adds up to little steps where you're behind a team such as Penske.
Yeah, Joe, you made a great point that the new aero package may have an effect here. Close corners racing. Yeah, Kevin Harvick, don't get me wrong, but most of the wins last did not come that way. They were more like 2.5, 3 second leads or more in the 2018 season for Harvick. Brad Keselowski and his wins, Atlanta and Kansas. They were both hard battles where he got the field to just fight on their own for second while crossing the line in closer margins. I feel like is the reason why Brad has a better advantage. But like I said, that doesn't mean don't look away or don't count out Harvick. 8 top 5s going into Charlotte, and I don't even know where he finished. That's why I'm saying going into Charlotte.
He finished 10th at Charlotte.
10th, so that's not bad.
Oh yeah. Before you guys continue, sorry to interrupt, but Will had to leave. He had to. So just wanted to mention that now. So.
Now back to what I was saying about Kevin Harvick, like those big margins, of victories that he had, like I know at Miami and Vegas, there was no stopping him in 2018. The first.
Well, Vegas was another story.
Yeah. Oh, I remember those races. And then Phoenix wins. The only thing stopping him, Fontana, was getting into the wall. I believe it was Kyle Larson. And then,
Holy crap.
And then he wins some more. At Kansas, Dover. And then, what were already 6 wins at this point?
Right.
And then we're going to the summer. He wins. It wasn't Michigan. I don't think he went until Loudon.
He won Atlanta, Vegas, Phoenix. Then he won Dover, Kansas, and then he didn't win to Loudon.
Yeah, which was a statement-making victory. He had to fight hard to get around Kyle Busch to the very end, and of course, I think he didn't win again until Michigan. And then I don't think that. And then after that, nothing until Texas, I believe.
Yeah, we know about Texas.
Yeah.
One of the things with the next 3 upcoming races, we have Pocono, Michigan, where there's a good chance for Harvick, Stewart-Haas to come back.
Yeah.
But I think that'll after those, Sonoma, and what makes Sonoma really interesting this year, they're running the configuration prior to 1998, so we're going to have a carousel, a tighter hairpin. So that could really, I think, advantage somebody like Harvick, who's good on the road courses, and now it may seem just like a small reconfiguration, but that carousel will be something where handling will be a little bit more of an issue.
Yeah, that's a great point. I completely forgot they're using the different layout for Sonoma this year, first time in a while. If I'm not mistaken, they still use the full hairpin at the end, right?
Yeah. Yeah, they're just adding the carousel.
Yeah, the carousel. So they don't run the short chute. They go through the carousel, and they come out with the drag strip, right? And they still use the S's.
Correct.
So remember Harvick's for Bakersfield, California. He made various Truck Series starts and West Series starts in his career. I'm talking about in the mid to late 90s. And, of course, in the West Series, a symbol of their schedule definitely includes Sonoma. They appear at Sonoma every year. And he made his first Truck Series races in California, and one of those races, driving that 75 Spears truck, was at Sonoma. And with the old layout, could that come to his advantage?
I do think drivers who have drivers like Harvick who actually know to run the carousel, they're going to have an advantage.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, the last time it looked like the carousel was in 97. And it looks like Harvick, I'm looking at Racing Reference, he did a couple Truck Series stars. I don't know if he did Sonoma, though. But, I mean, even before the trucks, he's not that far. He could have easily, done it. So it's gonna be something where if somebody had done races out in California, maybe Kyle Larson too, that carousel could be an advantage for them. So
That is true. But that doesn't change the fact that it's still a new layout, and it's very unusual for NASCAR, for the drivers to have to get back into adjusting lap times. You can't compare them to last year's anymore. So obviously be different because of the track changes. So
Here's something interesting.
get back to you, Armani.
Sorry about that.
Go ahead.
Let's move on to let's talk about the race winner of the Coke 600, Mark Truex Jr.
Yeah.
Even though he won, he still is sixth in the standings. That just shows you how inconsistent he's been all season.
Yeah, like you're seeing like his finish, like in the last 4 races, his average is 10.3, I think, something like that. That's his average finish. It's not been good.
But don't forget, he also
Truex-
won 3 times.
Yeah, but still, it's like with Truex, it's like basically he either wins or he does horrible.
Like his last 4 races have been 20th, 1st, 19th, 1st. Been 20th and a 19th in there. Like
Wow. So yeah, I think you're right on that. Maybe luckily for him, the chase for the cup is there. Unfortunately for Ryan Newman in 2003, nope.
Same thing with James Keselowski. Like he has 3 wins, but he's only 5th.
Yeah.
He beat Chase Elliott, who has only 1 win, but he's in 3rd, and Harvick, who has no wins, but he's 4th. They've been more consistent.
Like the point standings, and I'm so shocked how Alex Bowman coming in was he jumped Almirola and Clint Boyer jumped all the way to 10th. He's only 3 points behind Ryan Blaney for the 9th spot. And his last Kurt Busch is currently 8th in the standings. And that 1 car for Ganassi. That's not bad for Kurt Busch. And that 1 car. Kurt's been good this season. Compared to Larson, Larson only has 1 good thing that happened. Was him winning the All-Star
I think we're done talking about the Coke 600. You guys have anything you want to say before we give a preview for the races this week?
We also had other kind of races. We had Xfinity.
Right, we had an Xfinity race.
At Charlotte. That Tyler Reddick, or number 2, won the race. He dominated.
Oh boy, Tyler Reddick is just something else, man.
Like, there's only been 3 winners this season. At 4, actually. But Reddick's right now the points.
Let me. Oh, sorry.
It's 103 ahead of Costa. And that moved up to 6. That's not bad, finishing 6. And Junior Motorsport still has not won at Charlotte. Their best finish is 2nd. 3 times they finished 2nd.
I just want to say one quick little thing about Reddick. He is a madman. He is a wheelman. He's been doing fantastic this season, but that doesn't justify his championship last year.
I agree.
Last year, I don't know what happened last year, but he learned this year to do better, and he's been doing good in that car. Like, you've seen how he's performing on the track. He has 1 DNF. 1 DNF. That's all.
Yeah, Las Vegas. He finished 14th.
He's led 306 laps led. Bell has 2 DNFs. He DNF last race at Charlotte because of a blown tire, which is suspension. His brake rotor caught on fire. wait, because he decided to stay out longer. Buster got third. Cindric's fourth and Buster's third in the standings.
And how about Austin Cindric? He's only had 2 races where he's finished outside the top 10.
That's
Major improvement.
compared to last year. Like last year, he was not good last year. Like you've seen
Yeah.
in the 60 car, the 60. The 22 was not the best, but he's doing really good. And we had Dustin Allgaier, Jason Stowe, John Hunter, Ryan Seeks and 9. In that 39 car. Ryan Seeks still doing good.
Ryan Sieg, I want to talk about him for a minute. That guy is. I don't think there's anyone who I want to relate more to him than Ryan Sieg. Like, if I ever become a NASCAR driver, I want to do it his way. Taking a team with me that I feel like that's what I want to do. What he does, in all the years of the adversity of having your own team and growing it the way he does to bring in the dollars at home, it's like you could see the authenticity of Ryan Sieg and just the amount of top 10s he has this year. Makes me feel like, wow, give that guy some credit. There's no better driver or no persistent, more perseverant than Ryan Sieg is. I hope he can keep up at Pocono and bring him to Iowa with one piece. Because at Iowa, he got his best career finish of second.
In 2017.
That's right.
Like, Ryan Sieg's really doing good at that 39 years old. Owner is at Ron Sieg. And their team is based in Guilford, Georgia. All the way to Georgia. And most of the teams are in North Carolina. Like, on track every time they leave from Georgia, the race team, except when we're on the West Coast, but when we're on the East Coast, they leave Georgia. Basically going from Carolina, North Carolina, to Georgia, and Georgia, Pennsylvania, or Pocono. Like they're impressing me. Like that 39 person is impressing me.
Yeah, and I see that he has to start and park 1 or 2 of his cars in the races. Like I understand. It's like it's completely understandable. I have no bad will against him for doing that, or even against the practice itself. I'm not even against it. Like, do what you got to do to do better for the team. And
Yeah.
I feel like, ignoring the criticism of starting park,
Right.
is valuable.
Oh my god, I've been looking at the point standings. Jeb Burns, that runs part-time, has more points than Jeff Green, that runs full-time. Okay then. It's Toyota Green only has 50 points. Suzuki has 51. Ronnie Bassett Jr. that's only run 3 races has 51 points. Like,
Well, that's because Jeff Green is willing to volunteer his time and effort to help the team get fundings for RSS Racing by being a starting part driver, and that's what he's been doing in the last. I guess maybe the last 10 years of his career.
But Jeff Green's got his championship. He really has nothing else to race for.
Right. But he's right now. But the problem is he's run all the races. He's 36th in the standings. Ronnie Bassett Jr. is 34th. He only run 2 races. Yeah. The 92s run 2 races. And he's in 34th in the standings. Like.
But it's that sacrifice that makes a difference for a team like RSS Racing.
Like, Brendan Brown is actually in 15th in the standings. But Greg Alding is doing way much better than his teammate. He's like about 58 points. He's like 68 points ahead of Ray Black Jr. Greg Alding's 14th. Ray Black Jr.'s 18th. Ray Black Jr. has not been performing that 07 compared to Craig Alden in the 08. For some reason. Like, Brandon Jones on the cutoff by.
I want Brandon Jones to miss the playoffs.
Well, Chastain has not been.
He's not gonna make the playoffs.
Chastain,
He
I
might.
need you to beat Brandon Jones in the playoffs.
But so far, Chastain has not been catching him. Chastain's still been losing points. But Brandon Jones has been performing the last couple races. If Brandon Jones gets a win, he's locked in. He's almost won races before, including races in the truck.
Once Blue Moon.
Well, he almost won like 5 truck races, but he got screwed every time.
That is true.
He's got.
Brandon Jones just needs to get out of NASCAR, period. I mean, it's like, come on.
Listen,
Well,
I just gotta go a little weird.
How can Brandon Jones has been in NASCAR way longer than Christopher Bell, way longer than Tyler Reddick, way longer than all of them. He's in arguably one of the best, if not the best car, arguably, in the field. He's 12th. He's the final guy in the playoffs.
To be fair,
Justin
there's not that many
Haley.
cars out there.
Justin Haley is ahead of him. Michael Annett is ahead of him. Michael Annett. I know he won a Daytona.
Well,
God.
it doesn't help
For
that
Michael standards, that's actually pretty like
Justin Haley. Justin Haley has no DNFs this season. That's the problem. Brandon Jones has 3. One of them, including Cole Custer, getting into him. Thank you, Custer, for that.
He's very welcome.
Like, but the problem is the DNFs. Like, Timmy Hill has 5 DNFs. Chad Fincham has 4 DNFs. Jeff Green has 10 DNFs. Bilicki has 7.
Yeah, in case anyone for some reason doesn't know, I don't like Brandon Jones at all.
Well, he's
I
better.
don't like him either, but I have
He doesn't
to be
deserve
honest,
his
he's doing
seat.
better. Than
He's
he has
better
the
than
last 2
Spencer
years.
Gallagher.
Yeah, he's
Gallagher.
doing better, but he's
Gallagher.
better by his standards.
But Brandon Jones should have ran a full-time truck season. He should have.
Yeah,
GMS should have ran him a full season, but GMS said no. They wanted Spencer Gallagher, not Brandon Jones, because GMS likes his son more than.
It's obviously true because Spencer Gallagher, is kind of part of the team when it comes to ownership.
Oh yeah, I
for
just want
obvious
to say
reasons.
now Joe and Danny had to leave, so I want to thank them for joining on the podcast too. Now let's get back to the Brandon Jones debate.
Brandon
Drew Harry could do
Jones.
better in that car.
For me, I feel like Vegas, Custer could have stayed off of him. Custer dumped him down the back straightaway for no reason.
I mean, if you want to compare, okay, Spencer Gallagher isn't the best driver in the field either. At least he won a race.
Yeah, but Brandon Jones got
You can
second.
say what you want about Talladega. You could say, Talladega basically it's a wild card. I understand that. But he still won a race. Brandon Jones hasn't done
To
that.
be fair, Brandon Jones.
It took him till 2018 to get a second place finish. Took him till 2018.
Well, RCR was
He
not
almost
the
won
best
at
equipment. Brendan Gaughan sucked at. Brendan Gaughan only got
Brendan
2 wins and then did shit.
This is tough to explain. Brendan
Even Matt Tiff did better at RCR than Brandon Jones. And I don't like Matt Tiff either.
Because the 2 car has more speed than the 33. The 33 is
Okay, this is also the Xfinity series, so maybe we should build it up to the Cup standards. Who knows?
Right.
I mean, it's an interesting debate.
Like, Brandon Jones almost won like 3 truck races. He almost finished out.
Sorry.
Austin Wayne sounds wrecked him. Austin Wayne sounds from last truck. I still want to pick him up from that. From 2006, from 3 years ago.
Speak up, Justin. We can barely hear you.
Austin Wayne South.
Yeah.
Mark 22. On down the top. On lap 40. Come out of contention. And he was close. 2017 Kentucky. Second place again. He said second so many times that truck series.
Yeah, I mean, you're kind of fair on that. Well, to be honest, like, sometimes I look at drivers and I'm like, man, why can't he drive the car? And usually when it comes to Gibbs, I look at two drivers, one being Drew Herring and the other being Kyle Benjamin. And speaking of Kyle Benjamin, we got to talk about trucks because Texas is coming up in 2 weeks' time. That's their next race. They've been off since last week at Charlotte. And he's going to be appearing in the 45 Nice Motorsports Chevrolet that
25.
Chastain drove to Victory Lane in Kansas with.
But Justice, you said 25. You meant 45.
Oh, 45, I meant.
I was going to say 25.
No. But I wanted to mention that Kyle Benjamin is such an unsung hero. With the brief appearances he ran for Joe Gibbs Racing in I think it was 2016, 2017. And like very few in 2018. He's got poles, top fives. I mean, for the very few races he's ran, that's impressive. But
no, Brandon Jones on the ride.
Driving that 45 truck.
Or he's getting beat by a guy with no top five, who just got his first top five this season. But Brandon Jones in the ride. If Brandon Jones, unless Brandon Jones pulls a Tony Stewart 2005, where he just goes on a tear in the later half of the season, unless he does that, if Brandon Jones ever gets into a cup car, I don't care if it's part-time or full-time, if he ever does, that team, I hope that team loses all the respect.
I mean, maybe we'll see something different than we've seen. I mean, listen, we would not be talking the same way about Ross Chastain a few years ago than we are today, to be fair.
Yeah, but Brandon Jones has had way more chances of better equipment than Ross Chastain. There's no question about it.
Yeah, you're right. Ross Chastain has always been the driver that people put aside and that the teams they put away from it. And I completely get it.
You say Brandon Jones is bad, but Brandon has been leading laps is bad. Hey, he did better than Nemechek. He did better than Briscoe. That finished 20th at 19.
Okay. Guess who's ahead of him? Guess who's ahead of Brandon Jones in points? Nemechek, Briscoe, everyone else in the chase field.
Yeah, because Briscoe had better races because
Chase Briscoe won a race before Brandon Jones, and he was running part-time.
Okay, to be fair, anyone could do that in the Xfinity Series.
I mean, then again, I do agree. Basically,
the Xfinity Series is home for part-time winners.
Exactly. It's like if you're a part-timer in Xfinity, you're gonna win. Like for some reason, part-timers
it's not just limited to leeches or cup drivers.
I know. Ryan Preece, Chase Briscoe, Sam Hornish, just to name a few.
You're right.
But to cut out my argument, Brandon Jones sucks. Get him out of NASCAR.
Okay, that's what you say.
This is my opinion.
Get
my opinion of
he wrecked him
because he could agree with me on that one.
Cody Ware could get out of NASCAR.
Well, Cody Ware. Cody Ware is a different story. He's never come close to the equipment that Brandon Jones has.
Well,
he's also doing a job of helping a team come together.
Well, Corey LaJoy has stayed in good equipment.
Corey LaJoy. How do you consider good equipment?
He finished well. 600, so got to count for something.
What is that?
For them in 2014. That equipment didn't do much in that.
It's not really doable. It's that. Look.
Oh my God! Guess what? This just finished in the '98 car.
What?
16th at Kentucky.
Hey, I just want to. Sorry to interrupt you guys, but if for those watching the Stanley Cup playoffs, go Bruins! Big Boston Bruins fan. Game one's about to start on NBC and for CBC, I believe, in Canada.
Yeah. Corey LaJoy. I'm so shocked where he finished in the Coke 600.
He finished 12th.
In a crap car. Like that before the old Charlotte package, like the old package, 12 would have not happened. It would have been way worse than 12 life. That's really impressive.
All right, let's move on from this Brandon Jones debate, and let's actually go on to look at what races are coming up this weekend.
We got
Pocono, we got the Detroit doubleheader for IndyCar. is I think AMSA's doing
Yeah,
Detroit.
Enzo's gonna have a race. So it's a short race.
AMSA's having a short race at Detroit and
Arca at Pocono.
and Xfinity at Pocono.
Yep.
So let's just give short rundowns of these races. So let's start off with the ARCA race at Pocono. Who do you guys think will be ones to watch? Who do you guys think is gonna win the race? All that good stuff.
For me, two drivers to watch is Harrison Byrne in the 20 car. He won last year at Pocono in the first race, and and also Christian Eckes and Michael Self. Venarini has been strong last couple weeks. I feel Venarini, you're gonna watch up Venarini at Pocono.
If Harrison Burton races, he's gonna win.
Yeah.
Harrison Byrne, he won there last year. And Harrison Byrne knows, Harrison Byrne's been strong for Venarini in that 20 car. I feel like he has a good shot of winning the race.
If only you could do the same with KBM, but we'll save that for the truck race.
Then we have the Xfinity from Pocono.
Oh, before we move on to Xfinity, who are you guys' picks for the ARCA race?
Oh, for me, Harrison Byrne in the 20 car.
All right. What about you, Joseph?
Oh yeah, repeat that.
Who's your pick to win the ARCA race at Pocono?
Michael Self.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Michael Self too. All right, so I think so let's move on to Xfinity. Who do you guys think are going to be the ones to watch? I'm pretty sure it's going to be Bell, Reddick are going to be up there, Custer's going to be up there as well. But let's throw in some dark horses. Who else do you think you could contend for the win?
Yeah, it's a tough one. I mean, I could say Justin Haley. I mean, he's always a dark horse driver, probably great in New York, the best of the best. But they certainly shine when times need them to. I think, honestly, Chase Briscoe is the dark horse. Usually he's always under the wings of Cole Custer. And Custer's usually the man on display when you think about, stardom at the Xfinity Series for Stuart Haas.
I feel like all guys are going to be part of the mix too. With Bell and Reddick and Custer, Allgaier's been up front of Pocono a couple times. So I feel like he'll get a good finish at Pocono. But
Plus,
for the win at
the 2017 race.
He almost won 2017. My pick at Pocono, this is hard. I know we have two Cup drivers, Trace and Dylan, are the two Cup drivers. But the win Pocono, my pick.
I mean, maybe we can spend 5 or 10 more minutes on the podcast. I'm not trying to rush you guys off, but I'm going to.
I feel like
for the start of the hockey game.
We're experiencing technical difficulties.
my pick is Tyler Reddick for the Xfinity race at Pocono.
Tyler Reddick's just on a roll, man.
Yeah.
You can't stop him. Not in 2019.
Who's your pick,
His
Joseph?
2018 title surprise. His foreshadowed the 2019 season of Tyler Reddick's. Who knows?
Who's your pick to win?
Yes, me?
Yeah, you.
I'm going with Cole Custer.
Yeah.
All right, since you mentioned Stuart Haas Racing, I'm going to go with the dark horse. I'm going to go with Chase Briscoe.
Yeah,
all right. So
I did mention him as a dark horse. Now, let's also bring up.
Let's move up to the Cup Series. Who do you guys think going to be ones to watch? Who do you guys think? Well, who do you guys think is going to win?
Who's going to win? Ooh.
I'm going with Kyle Busch.
For some reason, I feel Alex Bowman because he's been finishing really well the last couple races. Plus, he finished third last year at Pocono. I feel like he has a good shot in that 88 Chevrolet.
All right, I'm going to go with I'm going to go with Kevin Harvick. He's been He's finished second at Pocono, I think. He finished second in 20. He finished second like 2 of the last 3 races, so I think he's going to get a chance. Unless he puts Kyle Busch and he doesn't win till like race 20.
I think if you're Kyle Busch, like, I mean, if it ain't going to be him, it's going to be Truex. They're both looking for the 3rd win at Pocono, and they're just strong. They know how to get it done at the tracks. I feel like it's going to be the 18 or the 19. Mark Truex Jr. making his Pocono debut with Joe Gibbs Racing, and is the spring winner of 2018 when he drove for Bernard Giroux, giving them 2 wins at Pocono, including the first one he had with them in 2015, the very first that they had together. So I think it's going to be Busch or Truex. It's hard to lean on one over the other for good reason. But, yeah, Gibbs is going to win another one this year.
All right. So let's move on to the IndyCar race at Detroit. Sorry we're rushing, guys. Joseph's got his Stanley Cup game on, so we want to get it done quick so we can get to going to watch. So let's move on to IndyCar. Who are you guys' picks for race 1 and race 2?
Oh. For some reason, for me, for the picks for race 1 and race 2, for me, Newgarden's winning race 1. Howard's going to win race 2 at Detroit. It's going to be Penske winning both races.
Well, now the mentality set to the championship and the championship only. Since the Indy 500 is behind us, I think Will Power is going to win race 1 and climb up the point standings like he will. And race 2 is going to go to Alexander Rossi, I think. Ryan Hunter-Reay. Ryan Hunter-Reay has usually been unsung after the Indy 500. Not too many people talk about him or the 2012 championship that he's had, but I think it's time to reconsider that he is a former champion in the series. That Ryan Hunter-Reay might show some signs of greatness. If Rossi doesn't win any of those races, Hunter-Reay will.
Yeah, for me, I'm going to go with Alexander Rossi for race 1, Hunter-Reay race 2.
Oh. Also, there's the IMSA race at Detroit. That's happening.
Yeah.
Who you guys picked?
What are the classes not running?
It's only GT Daytona and DPIs in the race.
Okay, for DPI, I'm going with Penske. They're gonna
Which
win.
one? There's 2 of them.
I don't know. They're just equally.
Well,
I think the 6 or the one with the Juan Montoya.
that's the 6.
Yeah, Montoya and Castroneves.
For DPI, for me, it's the number 10, Wayne Taylor Racing. They've won there before.
This is their last. For IMSA, the last race before the break that they go to Le Mans, and the last race before the Le Mans and Nürburgring breaks that they get the back-to-back 24-hour races, which come.
Oh, then it's GT Daytona. Oh, what for GT Daytona? Oh, I'm trying to pick. It's hard picking for GT Daytona
because they're so competitive. I completely understand. Well, Mid-Ohio was won by Lexus, the Amy Baxter Sullivan racing team, held off the Shank Racing Acura, number 86, though. I think, if I'm not mistaken, it's the 14 Lexus that got the win.
Yeah.
And they can go back-to-back and claim victory in this one, but you cannot count the Shank Racing Acura NSX GT3s. They're very strong. They have a good driver lineup. So it's going to be interesting, I feel like.
For me, some reason for me, GT Daytona, I feel like it's the 86 Acura in GT Daytona.
But also, don't look away from the Lamborghinis, as proven in Daytona.
Like the Lamborghini.
And I think they won Sebring too, didn't they?
I know there's the 44 Lamborghini, the Magnus Racing car is one of those Lamborghinis. That is Magnus Racing with Lally and Andy Lally and John Popper. They're going to be strong for Lamborghini.
So just use your pick.
For me, for GT Daytona, I feel like Acura is number 86. car.
And
For
who's your
Myers.
pick for GTD? For GTD, Colin?
I'm going with the 14 Lexus. And by the way, this is their last race. Like I said, last race before they go off before the drivers and many of the teams go to Le Mans. And for some, Le Mans and Nürburgring or just Nürburgring. Those races, of course, come in mid to late June, back-to-back weekends of 24-hour racing. I can't wait until that weekend comes around.
Also, there's some crew members not going there because next IMSA race at the end of June after the Nürburgring, we go to Watkins Glen at the end of the month.
Is it the weekend right after Nürburgring?
Yeah, the 30th, June 30th, the weekend after. We head to Nürburgring.
For some drivers, they're going to be racing at 3 different countries.
Ooh.
48 plus 6. How do you do the math on that?
48 plus 6 is 54.
Yeah. Some drivers and teams will be racing 54
hours
in a span
of
in 3 straight race weekends.
Wow.
So endurance
God
racing
bless
flip
them.
the switch, man.
All right. For my pick for IMSA, DPI. I'm new to IMSA all this, so I just picked Penske. I just picked Penske, whatever car Elio's in. So I'll go with the 7, and I'll go with the Acura 86 too, because like I said, I'm new to IMSA.
Right.
All right, so I think we covered everything. Is there anything else?
We did mention a little bit about supercars at Winton. They don't race until, I believe, the weekend of June 15th, 16th.
Yeah.
Scott McLaughlin's on a mission. I mean, he's just unstoppable. There's no stopping this Ford Penske guy. He's won 10 races so far, up to 14 that we're in. And it's a 36 race, I believe. I might be wrong. I think it's a 32 or 33 race season. But we're almost at the halfway mark. Not even there yet. And he's already won 10 races, which is unbelievable. That's pretty much all I got to say.
All right, Justin, you got anything you want to say?
No.
All right, so we're going to wrap it up here, folks. Once again, thank you all for joining this episode of the Below the Yellow Line podcast. I didn't get to mention this at the beginning, but happy Memorial Day. Thank you to all those who sacrificed their lives. So we get to do stuff like this because we got the freedom to do so. We can't do that without those who sacrifice their lives for our country and all that good stuff. So happy Memorial Day. And once again, thank you to everyone who joined the panel. And thanks for watching. And we'll see you next week.